Eric Pearl nekada je bio uspješni kiropraktičar u Los Angelesu. S vremenom oko njega su se počele događati čudne stvari. Između ostaloga shvatio da je sposoban i iscjeljivati. Korak po korak sve je manje bio kiropraktičar, a sve više iscjeljitelj. No da je ostalo samo na tome, ne bismo danas bili ovdje. Tijekom godina Eric Pearl je shvatio da svatko može pomoći sebi i drugima. Samo je potrebno ponovno se spojiti. To je nazvao rekonekcija i pod tim nazivom sabrao metode za koje je mislio da ih svatko može sam koristiti kako bi ovladao tim novim i ujedno starim energijama iscjeljenja. Pa smo se i spojili ovdje, na rubu znanosti. Pozdrav svima. Eric Pearl, nekada američki kiropraktičar, danas je autor bestsellera Rekonekcija i naravno istoimenog koncepta. Iscjeljitelj, ali i osoba koja podučava kako da čovjek i sam postane iscjeljitelj. Dobar dan ili dobro večer.
Thanks for having me.
Što je to rekonekcija?
The reconnection appears to be a new level of healing that the researchers feel may very well be here on this planet for our access for the first time. I know that's a rather bold statement, but I did make them explain that to me also.
Sa čime se to moramo ponovno spojiti?
We're reconnecting to what appears to be a greater fullness of who we are as human beings, who we are as, shall we say, spirit, as we go through this physical human experience. It's as if, as a lot of people explain, that we're here on earth to rediscover our potential of who we can become when we all become one again with one another and with the universe. It's not just a metaphysical or a spiritual concept. I mean, even science, quantum physics, for example, or physics, for example, has gone from separate and distinct, meaning this is a table and this is a chair, to relativity, this is a chair in relation to a table, to quantum, to consciousness, to truth. And as science is making these discoveries, we as human beings from the inside are making these discoveries. So it's really very interesting how, if we look back in time, there was a period where it appeared as if science and religion were walking in opposite directions. But of course it also appeared as if the earth was flat. They were walking in seemingly opposite directions, but the earth was round. So as they continued their journey, science went from separate and distinct to relativity, to quantum, to truth, to consciousness. And through the religions, people allowed themselves to return to the more spirituality, the higher level of spirituality that inspired the religions, because the truth, the one truth that most religions share, is a concept or a consciousness of love. And as they continue this journey, we're here, fortunately, at this time, where their journey is bringing them back to meet again. But along the journey, they've brought up or brought back gifts of support for one another. So science is giving us insights into spirituality, and spirituality today is bringing us insights back into science.
Na praktičnoj razini rekonekcija ima veze sa iscjeljivanjem i ne samo sa iscjeljivanjem, nego i sa sposobnošću buđenja u drugima sposobnosti da iscjeljuju. Zbog čega vaša knjiga ima podnaslov Iscjelite druge, iscjelite sebe?
The reconnection is actually even more. The two components you spoke of, and another, which is our evolution. But reconnective healing showed up in the form of healing. In essence, what really appeared here in August of 1993 was the reconnection, hence the title of the book. One small portion of the reconnection are these phenomenal healings. these healings that seemed to take place fairly instantaneously and almost always seemed to last for that person's lifetime. And it showed up in the way of when I was working as a chiropractic doctor, my patients beginning to have dramatic healings. The next level it showed up was that others could learn how to facilitate healings for other people. Also, this appeared at a time where everyone's consciousness was very self-centered, me-based. I, me, and how do I do self-healing? What we found was, with focusing on self-healing, the people tended to be so attached to their own needs that they limited their own healing. When we focus on facilitating healings for others, we step out of that consciousness of attachment of I, me. And in letting go, we seem to access our own healing. So the book was specifically called The Reconnection, Heal Others, Heal Yourself, to put the focus on bringing healing to others and to find that the surprise gift was that our own healing came in the back door. This is part of the reason why one of the programs through the Reconnection that we're starting to do now is we're introducing the healing program, teaching inmates in the prison systems around the world how to facilitate reconnective healing for others. Because while they're in prison, they're either ignored or they're forced, in a sense, to have their own rehabilitation. But when they begin to allow themselves to focus on the healing and rehabilitation of others, they start to receive their own gift. As they receive their own gift, they become more centered and empowered, knowing who they are again as human beings. So by the time they're released back into society, they walk back out saying, I have a gift to give. I have something of value to exchange. I have my own value. And they become much higher contributing members of society once again. So it is, heal others, heal yourself.
Prvi dio knjige posvetili ste dijelu svoje vlastite prošlosti, povijesti da ne kažem, i on doista je zanimljiv i pokazuje mnoge zanimljive događaje koji su vam se događali i koji su nekakvim čudnim nizom sinkroniciteta, kako to obično i biva, vas doveli negdje gdje ste već stigli ili ste trebali doći slično. Možete li nam ispričati neke od neobičnih događaja s kojima ste se susreli početkom 80-ih, dakle u vrijeme dok ste bili kiropraktičar? Preskočit ćemo neke epizode dok ste bili klinac s 3, 5, 7 godina. Međutim, eto, u to doba počelo sam se događati čudne pojave, iscjeljivanja, pa su se pojavljivale i rečenice koje su vam bile slate, pa čak i neobična predviđanja, psihometrija i slično. Koji splet događaja vas je doveo do tog da se zapitate zapravo jesam li ja samo kiropraktičar?
So we'll skip the birth process too, right? Okay. And you know what's funny? I'm glad you found that first part of the book interesting because I would not have written it. I was given a formula by the publisher of how to write this book because, well, I've never really written a book before, and on top of which, I don't even really enjoy reading, which my mother always says, stop saying that on television, but you know, mothers are around to say that. I would have gone right into the work, but they wanted the background. I don't know how interesting my background was, so I worked hard to pull things out. And as I explored, I found some things that I don't know how strange they were or weren't, because they just seemed interesting to me. We'll skip over strange, interesting things like you talked about, like when I was a child and I found that I was able to hold broken watches and they worked again. While other people were wearing good watches and breaking them, I was doing the opposite. But I do recall at some time, and I will say that this was probably in the very late 70s or early 80s, I remember I was working in a shoe store just to make money while I was going through school. And someone came into the store, a couple of people, and they said there's going to be an earthquake on Wednesday. And I said, how would you know that? And they said, well, we work at the seismology lab in Los Angeles. So I said, don't tell anyone else in this store. So they didn't. And after they left, I said, there's going to be an earthquake on Wednesday, and everyone thought I was ridiculous, and they laughed. And Wednesday came, and there was an earthquake. I happened to notice what the sky looked like that day. I just noticed what the sky looked like. It was a intensely interesting blue with beautiful, clear white clouds. Odd thing was that later that week or the next week, the sky looked just like that again, so I thought I'd take a chance. And I told my friends there's going to be an earthquake. And they left, and there was an earthquake on that day. Well, that started to happen fairly regularly for the next maybe 2.5, 3 years. Some of my friends were upset by it. They said, don't talk about earthquakes, it frightened them. But it only came to me, not when someone asked. They couldn't say, when will there be an earthquake? I couldn't figure it out that way. It was when the sky would look a certain way and I would see it. Now, at the time of writing the book, that's all I knew. The part of the story I shared with you, and interesting stories about when I warned people there'd be an earthquake and how they responded when the earthquake actually came. But now that I've learned a little more, read a little more, one of my friends who's been a guest on your show a couple of times, Lynn McTaggart, in her first book that was called The Field, it's an incredible book, she explains more clearly the consciousness of this field that we exist in, which today is called zero-point field. It used to be called the etheric field, which I refer to as the field that refused to die, because scientists just hated the fact that adults who seemed otherwise intelligent were believing in an invisible field. So science disproved the etheric field twice, once in the late 1800s, once in the early 1900s. Today it's come back and they call it the etheric field. We're not just in this field, we are this field. You and I are blips of information in this field. The communication that's coming across the television has to do with accessing certain aspects of this field. It's a field of awareness, vibration, frequency, light, information. When one child is on a school bus and stares at a friend who's asleep until that friend wakes up, they're accessing the field. When you think of a friend you haven't thought of in 15 years and 15 minutes, later the phone rings, you're in that field. People who are geniuses, people who are psychics, people who are healers. All they're doing is accessing and listening to the field, a little more here, a little more here, not second-guessing the information that comes in. This is our challenge, to learn to transcend judgment and the ego that tells us to remain in judgment, to listen to the information as it flows through, not necessarily even consciously, and then to step beyond knowledge of education and collecting knowledge of education and collecting facts, but to step into a state beyond that of knowingness, accepting the information, not second-guessing it. And this is how we become what appears to others to be psychics or geniuses or healers. Really, it's just us becoming, as we talked about earlier, more fully who and what we are as spirit, having our human experience.
U razgovoru sa nekim pacijentima, naravno, počeli su se događati stvari koje nadilaze kiropraktiku, kao što ste ih opisali. Mogu ukratko reći da su se počeli micati neki dijelovi tijela, pa su ljudi se čak iscjeljivali na načine na koje to nije bilo očekivano. Međutim, zanimljivo je da su također kroz nekih od njih progovarali neki glasovi. I tu se skupilo nekih 5-6 rečenica kojima ste razbijali glavu neko vrijeme. Meni je konkretno najzanimljivija bila ona koja je govorila da svojim djelovanjem povezujete strune. Pa jesu li to ove strune ili one strune, DNK ili neke druge. Možete nam ispričati ukratko te poruke, što su one, što su vam ljudi nesvjesno govorili i što ste vi iz toga zaključili u narednih 5, 10 pa i 15 godina? O čemu je to bilo riječi?
You know, I used to be a normal person. Up until this started, really, I think I used to be a fairly normal person. But let's do the background of the story just a little bit for your listeners before we step into this part. I was a chiropractor for 12 years. One night a lamp next to my bed turned itself on. I very clearly felt people in my house, so much so that I got up with a knife and a can of pepper spray and my Doberman pinscher, and I went looking for them. After 20 minutes, I still felt the presence of people in my home, which is very uncomfortable. And yet I realized it didn't matter how long I'd look, I would never find them, so I went back to sleep. That Monday, when I went into my office, 7 of my patients, independent of one another, began to tell me that they felt people standing in the room with us, in the doorway, deep in the room, walking around the room. Some of them said running around the room, and some of them looked me straight in the eye, and they even lowered their voice a little before they said this because they knew how strange it sounded, but they said it felt as if someone was flying around the ceiling. Now, this was my 12th year in practice. No one had ever said anything like this to me before. And here they are on this one day, 7 of them having the same experience I had that night in my home. So you would think that this would have gotten my attention. But other people are saying, I can feel your hands before you touch me. And I'm thinking, I don't really believe that. Close your eyes. So they'd close their eyes. I'd hold my hands. Different areas, I'd direct them, and they'd tell me, right shoulder, left ankle. As that happened, little tiny muscles around their mouth began to move. Involuntary muscles, muscles that we could not move intentionally, and they could not stop intentionally. Finger movement, feet movement. And as I watched this, as I pulled my hands further away, it became stronger. When I stopped and they could open their eyes, they started telling me that they were seeing colors, usually purple colors or gold colors or white, and they started reporting healings. I mean, real healings. They were getting up out of wheelchairs, and vision and hearing was returning, and they were running in and showing me laboratory results where their cancer tumors had vanished. Children with epilepsy or cerebral palsy were walking and speaking normally and running and playing and not having seizures any longer. So their parents and their doctors were calling me up and saying, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything, and don't tell anybody. Well, that went over about as big government saying, just say no to drugs, you know, so everyone started coming in saying, I'll have what she had. And the next thing we know, people started asking me to teach this. And I said, teach it. You got to be crazy. There's no instruction manual that anyone gave me. I'm standing there waving my hands in the air, looking a little foolish. Why don't you go outside and wave your hands in the air and look foolish and tell me what happens? But more and more of my patients would call me after their sessions in my office and say that when they got home, they pulled up in front of their home, and before they reached for the button to open their garage door, the garage door opened. And when they went into their house, their lamp or television opened up or turned on. They felt sensations in their hands. They would hold their hands but near someone in their family. The uncle was able to walk again after the stroke, or the mother regained the use of an arm or a leg. And we suddenly began to find that once you interact with what science calls this reconnective healing spectrum or frequencies system, it seems to give us all the abilities of any and all of the energy healing techniques combined without having to learn the technique. As a matter of fact, once you access this level of healing, if you try to add or incorporate a technique, you reduce it. And then it brings us beyond energy into a spectrum comprised of what science calls energy, light, and information, levels of light and information that they've never seen before here on the field of physics or even within quantum physics while discoveries are still opening up. Because, for instance, energy gets weaker with distance. I don't mean distance healing, but if you start 2 or 3 centimeters away and you move 2 or 3 meters away, energy becomes weaker. Yet this becomes stronger. The involuntary... You want to feel it?
Zašto ne?
All right, let's try this.
Sad ću napraviti jednu malu demonstraciju.
Bring your hand over here for me. Just lean a little bit forward. Perfect. Now, instead of even worrying about feeling it, well, I'll show you. I bring my hand in, and you see if I push my hand down, it sort of floats back up. Because I'm not pushing. I'm not sending. Do you see how your fingers started to move? I'm not pushing. I'm not sending. I'm really just sort of listening with a different sense. I feel, I watch, I observe. And there go little tiny movements again in your fingers. So I notice where I feel them. I follow the sensation. I pull. And I stretch. There they go again. Did you see it?
Yes, sir.
Great. Now, this does not mean that you necessarily feel anything yet, because you do have to learn.
Mogu reći da osjećam neku hladnoću. Ali teško je reći.
Coolness. Okay. No, that's fine. That's what most people often begin to feel. Not just a sense of coolness, but usually they describe it as a cool breeze.
Vrlo dobar opis.
Wonderful. Now, let's try something interesting. You close your eyes for me. Keep them closed while we talk. And if the camera could close up on your eyes, that would be great. And now I'm going to ask you a question, and just answer me while your eyes are closed. Are your eyes still, or are they moving?
Ne, one se kreću koliko mogu osjetiti.
Good. So just do me a favor for a moment and just stop your eyes from moving. No. I mean stop your eyes from moving.
Ne, izgleda da ne mogu.
All right.
One se miču, bez obzira što ja želim.
Okay. Try now to stop them. It's even more difficult for you to do it now. Can you feel how strong they're moving?
Da.
Okay. Now open your eyes. Look how far away I've moved.
Sva sreća da su se sad zaustavili dok sam otvorio.
The further away we moved, the stronger the response became and the more difficult it was for you to stop. This is part of what began to get the interest of international scientists around the world, because, some random researchers may have decided to study Reiki or Qigong or energy healing techniques, but most of science didn't want anything to do with it because it was too subtle. Most patients would report that they felt calm or relaxed or a little more loving, but that was the extent of it. With reconnective healing, consistently in controlled, randomized, double-blind studies, they show precise physical responses, just as you demonstrated here. The healings that tend to happen often happen after only one session. And most of the time, as I said, the healings seem to last for the person's lifetime. So they don't need to come in and have session after session after session. When the website is the same name as The Reconnection to make it easy for people to find. It's thereconnection.com in English. There are buttons where you can translate it into various languages. I believe that it's already in the Croatian language. If not, there is a Croatian website for it. So you can find a practitioner in your area. When you are looking for a practitioner, people say, how do I know if someone's good? Anyone can learn to access this. There's just one thing to look for. Google that person up and make sure that they're not still also in energy healing techniques. Because part of the gift of being able to access this comes from transcending technique. And if they're still stuck doing, XYZ techniques or zipping up their fields or spraying themselves off with alcohol or doing any of today's energy healing techniques, they won't bring it through as fully. But when we played, all you and I did was play. No expectation to feel. This is part of the gift, coming back into who we are as human beings. When these healings first started happening, my patients were coming in to see a chiropractor, and I thought I was one. You couldn't better double-blind a test than that. It has nothing to do with faith, hope, and belief. It has to do with allowing us to just return to who and what we are.
Kada pričamo o subjektivnim iskustvima, njih ljudi dijele, savjetuju jedni drugima i slično. Međutim, kada pričamo o znanosti, ono naravno traži neku mjerljivost, neku ponovljivost i malo je mjesta, kao što ste rekli, na svijetu koje se bave zapravo testiranjem energetske medicine. Jedno takvo jest na sveučilištu u Arizoni, dr. Gary Schwartz, kojeg znamo da je taknuo mnoga područja od pamćenja transplantiranih organa pa nadalje. Naravno, u laboratoriju za ljudske energetske resurse, kojeg je on direktor, on se okušava u takvim mnogobrojnim pokusima, reiki, štakorima i slično. Vi ste se isto tamo našli, na kraju on je napisao predgovor o vašoj knjizi. Možete li opisati neke eksperimente koji bi bili, dakle, ono što zovemo objektivni dokaz da se takve stvari događaju, pogotovo zato jer je dr. Gary Schwartz rekao da nisu tamo da toliko da testiraju ili osporavaju, nego da daju priliku nekoj pojavi da se pokaže. Pa na koje načine se moglo ili se pokazalo u nekakvim eksperimentalnim uvjetima da se dolaze do razne iscjeljenja i senzacija?
Dr. Schwartz has a very stellar background, many degrees. Medicine, psychiatry, psychology, other areas of physics. He was instructors, he was teachers. He's a very solid researcher. He was maybe the second person in science to take an interest in reconnective healing, only because he saw it demonstrated. So one of the first studies that he devised was done with students at the University of Arizona. He brought them in, and it was, again, a controlled, randomized, double-blind study of the highest level. Reconnective healing studies, by the way, exist around the world, and they are in peer-reviewed research journals. So if anyone says there's no research on this work, you can let them know that you're terribly sorry that they're not up to date on today's science, because it's here. The first study that he did was he had these students blindfolded, and then I would sit opposite them, and also people that I taught how to do this work, because we're bringing the seminars, we've already brought them to this area, the Czech Republic, to Serbia. It's our plan, we hope, to be able to bring them here to Zagreb, here to Croatia next year. We hope. We'll see if we get enough interest. And so the students were blindfolded. They were told to hold their hands up. I would sit opposite them, or one of the people I trained, at about maybe this distance. And I would direct the frequencies toward either their right hand or their left hand. Behind me, I would see a researcher in a booth who would hold up the card, right hand, left hand, person A, person B. So none of them knew who was being selected or which hand. And then the timer would begin, and they would have 60 seconds to say person B, left hand, or person C, right hand. On day one, the students were able to do this with an accuracy level of somewhere in the 60 percentiles, 60, 63, 64. It was a 5-day study, approximately maybe 10, 12 hours a day. By day 5, they were in the mid-90% of accuracy, almost 100%, 94, 95, 96% accuracy. If you start at 60% and you build to 90%, that's called a learning curve. And the reality is, you cannot learn to find something unless it exists. So the first study was one of the early ones that indicated the existence of this work. We did studies at Jackson Memorial Hospital at the University of Miami that showed clinically how it affected people's hands and arms and legs when surgery could not help them. We've done studies now we've done them in London, we've done them in New York, we've done them in Australia. We worked with athletic teams, national teams in Australia, in Russia, in other places. As a matter of fact, just recently in Russia, Dr. Konstantin Korotkov, who's internationally renowned for coming up with what's called, it used to be called the GDV, it's now called something else. It's today's evolved version of Kirlian photography. It measures the energy fields with photographs that are consistently reproducible, so they're recognized as valid in science. What happened was he arranged for us to come and teach doctors how to do this work in St. Petersburg. So we did a 2-day teaching class, 3 hours a day for 2 days with a group of doctors. Of course, being Russia, there was a lot of red tape to be able to arrange for this and get government permission. And because Dr. Korotkov is so well respected at the schools and with the athletic teams, he was able to bring in for us the Olympic athletes, Russian Olympic athletes, to lie down on the tables to be our models. So 4 days before this event, after all the months and months and months of red tape, one of the Olympic athletes broke his leg. So we didn't have time to exchange him because the paperwork would have taken too long. So he came in with a broken leg on crutches and the broken leg up in the air, so he was really just hopping on his good leg, in a lot of pain. By the second day, the crutches were gone. He was walking on both legs. The only thing that bothered him was that cast was still stuck on his leg, and the researchers and his own doctor could not find any evidence of the fracture. How could a broken leg, the fracture itself, completely disappear within a 24-hour period? I don't know. We don't know. This is part of the gift of what allows us to access this new level of healing. Being sufficiently free of the ego's need to know. Because when we say we know the answer, we set out and say, we have to find the answer, this is how it works. The moment we say we have the answer, we stop learning right there on the spot. We say this is right, so everything outside of that is wrong. But when we're willing to say I don't know, now we go into an objective state of observation without judgment. And we begin to observe, I don't know how this works, but I can see that possibility, I can see that possibility, and I can see that one. If I can put some of these possibilities together, I get a better answer. And yet the truth is, it's not really an answer at all. They're just better building blocks so that we can ask even better questions, because our growth comes in the questioning. Philosophy is about the questioning. We will all know all the answers all too soon, maybe after we leave the body. But becoming more fully the spirit that we are as we go through this physical lifetime includes our growth and willingness to expand our comprehension.
Ako sam dobro shvatio, vaša osnovna teza je da svatko može biti iscjeljitelj, da svatko to zapravo i jest.
Everyone is a healer on some level. What's interesting about this is that once we interact with it, anyone can learn to do this. This new level of healing allows us to completely transcend our energy healing techniques and bring about a greater gift for the people who come to see us. It's why it's even easier when we teach children and easier when we teach people with no energy healing background whatsoever, because we don't have to move past their egos of saying, I'm an expert in this and this and this. So it's easier. That's the gift. The challenge is whether or not we're willing to allow ourselves to transcend our energy healing techniques. That becomes the limitation. The people who aren't willing to allow themselves to completely transcend it cannot bring this through as well, or won't. They can, but they won't be able to until they transcend it. We could explain it differently. The gift of this is that it allows us to completely demystify the healing process. The challenge is whether or not we're willing to allow the healing process to be demystified. So the question becomes, if we're not willing to transcend our energy healing techniques, allowing us to do less, to bring about more for the people, we need to ask ourselves why. If we're not willing to allow the healing process to become demystified, clear, and transparent for everyone, we need to ask ourselves why. And if we're not willing to ask ourselves why, then we really need to ask ourselves why. Because the gift is in that clarity. When we're here, hopefully next year, or in any of the seminars we do around the world, the way we teach it is simple and clear. Even though I don't know the answers, and yet we teach it. Even though you can't teach healing, we can teach a way to access this. So usually what happens is, we'll give a seminar on a Friday night, a Saturday, and a Sunday. Friday night is simple. It's usually a 3-hour presentation. We talk about the theory, the history, the science. We bring up volunteers from the audience to do live demonstrations of the healings. And we give everyone an opportunity to experience this in their own hands. We did this in Belgrade to a presentation of about 350 doctors just the other year, and we hopefully will be doing it again and maybe something similar here. But Saturday and Sunday is a working seminar, so I'll tell you right now, don't come. If you think we're all going to sit around, hold hands, om, and sing Kumbaya, my Lord, because it won't happen. This really is my personality. I don't get prettier. It's a serious working seminar. There's a stage in the center of the room. There's chairs on one side, massage tables on the other, one massage table for every 2 or 4 people. We demonstrate a level of the work, then we go to the massage tables. Then maybe one person is lying down, and let's say you're in the seminar, you're standing up. So I'll walk over to you, I'll take your hand, and I'll show you how to begin to find a certain sensation in your hand. And suddenly you'll start to see that person's fingers move up and down. And then I'll glide you over here, and I'll say, now tell me when you get another sensation. And you might say, I'm not sure if I feel anything. I'll say, well, move up, move down, start to feel here. You'll go, there it is. And then you'll start to see their fingers or their feet move another way, or their eyes. And as you do this a couple of times, you begin to recognize your role in this. It becomes clear. You don't need to study it for 3 years or 15 years or even 3 months. It becomes clear. We go back to the chairs, talk about what we did, demonstrate the next level, go back to the tables, and by the end of 1 weekend, not a year, not 3 months, 1 weekend, you'll be able, I can pretty much make you 2 promises. You'll be able to facilitate any level of healing that I can, at least as well, if not maybe even better. And you'll be able to facilitate any level of healing that any human being on this planet can access, whether they moved to Brazil and worked in a church and changed their last name to of God, or whether they claim to be raised by monks in a cave at a mountaintop in Tibet. It makes no difference what the story is. It only makes the difference if we are willing to transcend the story itself, demystify the process. And once we do that, we become more fully who we are here on this planet. We become more fully connected with one another. I believe this is part of our real lesson. See, I told you in the beginning, well, you asked about the reconnection, you asked about healing. I don't like the word healing because it sounds as if there's something we always have to get better from. Healing is not just getting better with an arm or a leg or a liver or a kidney. It's about our human evolution simply becoming more. Now, I could either stop talking here, which I'm sure you'd love, or I could answer the question that I recognize now I forgot, which was, you wanted to know about those phrases? You want me to talk about
Nema
that?
veze. Davno smo skovali naziv kvantni intervju. Postavi se jedno pitanje, dobije se neki drugi odgovor. A što, život ide dalje. Ono što je zapravo dobro za razmisliti sljedeće. Spominjate problem s nekim izrazima, sa riječima, poput energetska medicina, duhovna medicina, s obzirom da one sve podrazumijevaju nekakvu tok energije koju neko daje, šalje i slično. Međutim, ovdje se radi o informaciji i odlična je usporedba da se zapravo informacija jednako dobro može prenijeti i šaputanjem, kao i vikanjem, dakle, bez obzira na odnos, na unos energije koji se daje. Međutim, koja su se pokazala primjerice, barem u našem shvaćanju stvari, nekakva, da li postoje ograničenja rekonekcije? Naime, na ovom svijetu postoji jako puno ljudi koji imaju zdravstvene probleme. Mnogi od njih traže načine da si pomognu, neki ih nađu na jednoj strani, neki ih nađu na drugoj, neki na trećoj i naravno, mnogi od njih nikad ne prestaju tražiti i naravno pokazalo se da su sustavi toliko složeni da često puta iz nekog razloga nešto što vredi za 9 ljudi ne vredi za 10, zato jer jednostavno je teško ući u trag pravom uzroku ili nekoj kočnici ili slično. U kojoj mjeri i do kojih raspona su se ljudi koji su recimo do sada pokušali i uspjeli raditi rekonekcijom, dakle, rješavali bolesti, pomagali i slično? Da ne pričamo sad o postocima, nego o jednom, kako bi se reklo, koliko je doista moguće da svi mogu iscjeljivati sve?
First of all, there are no guarantees in life. Wish there were, but there aren't. Just like with your medical doctor, the reconnective healing practitioner also can't make any promises. When people call to make an appointment with me, I tell them this. I teach the people at seminars, when people make an appointment with you, just tell them right away on the phone before their appointment, just like your medical doctor, I also can't make any promises or guarantees. I don't know what form your healing will take. I don't know if it will happen right away, later. I don't know if you'll happen partially, if it will happen completely. I don't know if you'll even recognize a healing at all. If that's all right with you, I'm happy to schedule an appointment. I know it's a little more upfront, honest than your medical doctor might be, but the fact is it's the same truth. There was a wonderful film, at least in the U.S., with Ellen Burstyn, was up for an Academy Award around 1980, called Resurrection. It's not a religious film. It's a film about spirituality and a film about healing. There was a beautiful line in it that Ellen Burstyn's grandmother had, where she said, "Some people need their illness to give love, some to get love. We don't know why people hold on to certain illnesses or challenges. We don't know why we can't give a guarantee. We don't know why 2 aspirin might get rid of your headache and not get rid of someone else's headache and cause someone else to have stomach bleeding or have Ray's syndrome. We don't know why. But the fact is there is nothing beyond, I believe, from what I've seen so far, there's nothing beyond what reconnective healing can bring about. But what we have to bear in mind is it's not the health challenge, the arthritis, the liver cancer, the brain tumor, the cerebral palsy, the epilepsy. It's not the health challenge that has the healing. It's the individual. It's the person. Whatever is appropriate for that person on their life course. So 3 people might come in to you as a practitioner if you learn this work with the same set of symptoms, the same diagnosis, and get 3 different sets of response according to what's appropriate for them. And yet, once you see the highly significant number of healings that do take place that seem outside of the belief system or the spectrum of many other forms of health care today, including energy healing, then you start to recognize there's a purpose. There can't be this significant number of children with epilepsy or cerebral palsy who run and walk and play normally and give up their seizures unless something's happening. There can't be this significant amount of people reporting that their brain tumors or their liver cancers have vanished unless something's happening. As a matter of fact, I will offer you an invitation and a challenge, depending on how seminars here, to Croatia, or if you want to come somewhere sooner. You attend as my guest, but you attend so the people maybe don't recognize you or your name if you do it in another country. If you can't, people know you, they know you. But if you can attend anonymously, do so. And you watch what healings happen. You watch what changes go on in people. You watch the people who were dragged there by a husband or wife who didn't want to come, who suddenly recognize that something that they totally did not expect is occurring. And then you come back, because your audience obviously trusts you as an authority. And you say, I went, it was crazy, nothing happened, or I went, and there's something distinctly new on this planet. And you decide.
Vidjet ćemo šta će budućnost donijeti. Osim što se u knjizi bavite rekonekcijom, ima tu puno zanimljivih izleta u razna područja koja nekog čitatelja koji i nije zainteresiran samo iscjeljivanjem mogu privući ili mu dati inspiraciju. Konkretno, meni je bio zanimljiv detalj u kome se bavite ritualima, odnosno njihovom nepotrebnošću, odnosno u konačnici ekstrapolacijom da su zapravo rituali nekakav izraz straha. Možete nam to malo bolje objasniti?
Let me explain it in a simple basic story that happened to me, because this story seems to make it the most clear. Some people don't like the story, but it's probably because it makes it so clear. And I even have people say to me, please don't tell this story because it sounds like you're making fun of techniques. And I say, I tried to take the parts of this story out that people don't like, but then it changed the truth of the story. So I finally decided that God, love, or universe, whatever word you're happiest with, had this story happen to me because it knew that I had a big mouth and I would share it with the world. And so I'm going to live up to my part of the bargain and share it. And it's up to the rest of us what message we get from it. But in essence, I went home from my office on a Friday thinking I was a chiropractor. I came back on a Monday and I was something else. My parents had always told me I was something else, but this was not what they had in mind. You know, my patients, their fingers and their feet are moving, and words are coming out of their mouth that they had no intention of speaking, and they were having healings. And I wanted to know what was happening. So I figured the only people who would know would be healers. I went to the magazines that are in the health food stores and the metaphysical bookstores and looked in the back for all the healers who were advertising and promoting themselves. Come to me, I'm Helen Healer and Larry Lightworker and Charlie Channeler. And I called the ones whose photographs made them look the most sane, both of them. And I called the first person and I explained what was happening. He said, come over and show me and demonstrate on some people he'll have there. So I went over, I showed him. Afterwards, he looked at me and he said, you're using protection, aren't you? And I was thinking, well, that's a little bit personal. What do you mean? He said, well, you have to protect yourself. I said, from what? He said, well, nothing really, but you better use protection. Already I'm feeling frightened. This was one of my first introductions into the fear that is so pervasive in the energy field. I said, what should I do? He said, well, call in the presence of Mother, Father, God. So now I'm relieved from the fear that I didn't know that I had before I went there. I go back to my office, I'm ready to do healing. I'm going to call in Mother, Father, God, visualize them, except I suddenly realized I didn't know what they were supposed to look like. So after a lot of thinking, I decided I'd do a Mother God and a Father God, and since they're both gods, I make them really big. So as I did that, I was happier, but the healing seemed to be less. So I called someone else, I went to them, they said, show me what you're doing, I did. Then they said, well, you're using protection. I said, well, of course I am, I'm calling in Mother, Father, God. They said, what about the archangels? Who knew? So they explained, or Michael goes in the right, or Oriel goes in the front, and Michael goes in the right, and there's Gabriel and Raphael, they go somewhere else. So I set them all up in my mind's eye. I said, excuse me, Mother, Father, God, could I move you a little bit over here, because I have to have an archangel there. And I do the healing, but the healing seems to be less. So I go to someone else, they tell me, call in Jesus, so I call in Jesus. I go to someone else, they tell me to call in Sananda. I said, who's Sananda? They said, it's the star name for Jesus. I said, I already have Jesus. They said, you need them both. Pretty soon I'm walking around with a list of names of people. I don't know who they are, Lao Tzu and Matzo Ball and Saint Germain and Saint Bernard. I'm calling in everyone. I can hardly fit in the room. Other people are telling me to say prayers, like the 23rd Psalm, which is no short little ditty. The more things I'm doing, the less is happening. I finally get sent to someone who's supposed to have all the answers. He watches me do a session. He says, you're shaking your hands off afterwards, aren't you? And I'm thinking, no, they're still here. He said, well, you've got to shake them off, shake the energy off. So I went like this, and he went, no, 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 not towards me, and he kind of pushed it away. He said, you have to shake it off into a bowl of salt water, because the water will catch it, but it could escape. So you put the salt in, and the salt breaks it up. And the water can be used for up to 3 people, but then the bowl has to be changed, but you can't change it. Someone else has to, so he sends someone over to watch. Anytime I've used a bowl 3 times, someone else washes it and changes it.
Svi ti rituali zapravo
The more I was doing, the less was happening. And one day it dawned on me, let go. Let go of all these fear-based things. I threw out the bowls of water. I threw out the people emptying them. I stopped saying all the protections and protecting myself in a white flame, in a purple flame, in a gold flame.
A čemu zapravo,
and the healings came back up.
Čemu zapravo služe ti rituali?
Because I thought that these people were experts in healing.
Ne,
but they weren't.
Čemu njima služe? Kako ih vi objašnjavate u knjizi?
The rituals are designed to protect you from negative energy. Even today, the energy techniques, some of them are saying, zip up your system to protect you from negative energy coming in. One of them is so ridiculous, it says it will also protect you from gaining weight. All of these things are to protect you. But the fact is, when we do something to protect us, we are standing here in fear, lack, limitation, separation, the illusion of darkness. But healing resides over here. In love, oneness, prosperity, light, abundance. And we can't give a gift that we can't accept. We cannot stand here in fear, lack, and limitation and offer a gift of healing if we're not willing to come over here. We have to let go of these rituals and protections, pick up our fears, carry them over here into the light. Find one thing we're afraid to do each day and do it. If you're wearing too much black and you want to do a healing session, don't put on your healing colors, dress in all black, don't cheat, don't put on purple underwear. The worst thing that could happen is you'll die. If you don't die, you'll have walked through one conscious sphere. Each time we step through one conscious sphere, we become more and more the light that we are. So when we step into the healing process as light, we don't need any protection any longer because light needs nothing to protect itself from because darkness doesn't exist. If it did, we could sweep it up, put it into a paper bag and stick it out with the trash, but darkness is simply that one place where we haven't allowed ourselves to shine as the light that we are.
Da ne pričamo da dovoljno sa sobom imati upaljač i već smo se riješili mraka. Hvala vam, gospodine Pearl, i vidimo se nekom sljedećem prilikom.
Right.
Pričali smo dakle o ponovnom spajanju, došao je trenutak da se odspojimo od vas, ali ako je to uopće moguće u ovom svijetu koji je spojen uzduž i popreko i odozdola i dozdola. Zato samo, kao i obično, doviđenja.